meeting back to order. We're on to 9.1 to my knowledge, recreation active living strategy outlook.
So good morning, Council. We're here to follow up actually with last week's meeting. There was a motion from the Recreation Committee, a recommendation for Council to adopt this document. And so before we did that, we thought we'd take an opportunity to actually come in and review it with you a little bit and let you know what's in it before we ask you to
Who's standing on the cliff?
Yeah, who is that handsome dude?
That handsome dude, I would like to take credit that it was one of us, but it actually isn't. This actually, we
Looks like me. No, I think it's Andre.
It's not me.
Our economic development staff at the time did a photo shoot with the folks from A for Adventure. So that's who
It's one of those people.
That's one of those people.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's Chris.
Yeah, it's great.
Actually looks like Tim. Weird.
So so at some point in time, you all should go out and take advantage and stand in that exact spot at some point.
He's guardrail.
Okay, we're getting a little distracted with the cover here.
Moving on.
There's more content than the cover, so.
What if Bruce?
So if we go on beyond the cover, so there's lots of really good content in this document, and so this project actually started about a year ago, and so I just wanted to give say a couple of things, then I'll kind of turn it over to Gord. So Gord was actually our facilitator for this process, and so it was developed in partnership with the Recreation Committee, and so there's lots of work done, like I say, over about the last 12 to 14 months. On this document, and with the Rec Committee kind of leading the charge with staff support. So Gord did an excellent job facilitating, gathering the information, pulling it together, rechecking in, refining, and then polishing it off and adding a few pretty pictures to make it look like a nice polished off document. But it's really the content in here is what we're really wanted to focus in on today. So the other piece I just want to mention is that's kind of important in this context is the funding that we get through Gord's position, so the Municipal Physical Activity Leadership Program through the province, MPAL for short. We are still getting that funding from the province every year, and so as part of that, there's an MOU and agreement with the province. There's some things that we want to work on together, and so in terms of things like physical activity levels and all those kind of things. And so this document has been reviewed by staff at the province as well, and so just want to make sure that you are aware of that connection, that this document not only serves our needs, but it also serves those needs as far as that agreement that we have with the province for that funding. So I just want to kick off with that. I'll turn it over to Gord to kind of go through a few of the details, and then obviously if you folks have any questions, we're happy to answer.
Yeah, so we just wanted to create some space this morning for you guys to give us a second round of your thoughts on this. Everything up to page 6, so the guiding principles, the strategic priority areas, and the action areas. So it should all be familiar to you. We brought these to you back in September, and you gave some early indications of your thoughts on them. And what we tried to do is take some of those ideas that you shared with us at that time and make sure that they're reflected in here as well. So things, Alan, for example, I recall you said, I just want to know what people want to do in our communities. So we tried to weave that into this as well. Reflecting arts and culture strategy as well, Andre, that's a priority of yours. But otherwise, all the bullets underneath the priority areas, and I don't intend to go through those one by one, but if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. All those bullets that you see there, the actions, are kind of developed through our conversations with CMRC, through our own staff conversations as well, and kind of are reflective of the DNA of the work that we do and all those other many strategic plans that influence the work that we have in front of us, but we tried to adopt some new things as well to kind of make sure that we are, as we keep saying in this document, how are we filling the buckets with those action areas. We're trying to make sure that we're always attending to those priorities and being really intentional in the work that we do as well. So one last point on those is I just wanted to flag the key indicators of progress that you see at the bottom of each of those priorities. There's a subtle nuance in the language of that. What we tried to do there is give ourselves some accountability to this and make sure that we're actually somehow being able to not necessarily measure quantitatively, although you see that a little bit, but at least be able to say, flag how we are actually making progress towards this work. You might often see in some of these kinds of reports, key performance indicators, which say you need to achieve this thing by this date. That's not what these things are intended to be. They're just there to make sure that we're actually doing the work and taking steps along the way to get to fill the buckets, like I said. So with that, I'll open it up for discussion. If you have any questions about any of those specific strategic actions, let's chat about them, or just general thoughts as well.
I don't.
It's quite detailed.
Lots
A lot of work into it.
Yeah, thanks, Floyd. And we tried to, yes, add some detail, but what I'll add on that note is that, we feel that sometimes these kinds of plans can be very aspirational and unachievable. So we've all seen examples of that. What I think we also try to reflect in this is like our skills as staff, some areas of expertise that we have, but also our capacity to do this work, and also taking signals from you is where your support is, what kind of things you're supporting, where we receive your support. So just to say that there's details in here, yes, but those are kind of all the things that we're trying to be considerate of when we build these details too.
Yes, Derek.
I'm on page 8.
Yep.
And strategic actions in the future. Some of them I understand, some I don't know what the adopting the sport and rec hub, if applicable, means.
I can speak to that.
So maybe without going over each one in detail, maybe give me a sense of what's achievable in that particular.
Yeah, so you might be familiar with South Shore Connect or even Nova Scotia Connect. So it's a project that the rec directors across the province developed about 10 years ago or so. So it's an online database of all things recreation in our municipalities. We have South Shore Connect in this area. We have about 133 records in that database. The useful life of that platform is coming to an end and it needs to go somewhere else, just from a technical standpoint. So I've been around way too many of these sport hub conversations recently, but what we're trying to do is find a new place for that database to live, and then there's also some functionality on top of that that could be really, really beneficial to us. So without getting into the weeds, we pay a system out of California to do our registration for us. Our fees go there. This is a homegrown product that if we could do as a value add to our registration rec hub, we would benefit from that, but it would also give our community sport organizations and our community recreation organizations an opportunity to use that system as well if they chose to. So this is speaking to how do we build that system and build something new and better than what we have currently and make it more available to support our community.
That do it for you, Derek?
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, we can speak all day on those next 3 years, but that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, well, and
Tina, then Sheriff. Right, that's the way I saw it, I guess.
Thank you. Love this document. Just a couple of things that really jumped out at me were, and I'll just go in order of the pages maybe, I guess. The reference to furthering opportunities, expanding programming, having discussions, et cetera, as they relate to our community schools.
Yep.
Like that, really do. Actually, I'm going to jump over that page. The collaboration around, if you will, working with, continuing to support the Hubbard Streetscape project, the New Ross Trail Society. I love that. I love that you do that work, but now it's, if you will, definitely noted and recorded here. Love that. I know that you do that. And great back cover page of Lord Park. Good number of people. Good number of people enjoying the events at Lord Park. And I'm going to end with, because I know that we're heading into the next item on the discussion, some items around our EDI committee. And certainly been happy and proud to be a member of council rep, one of two council rep members on that committee. So being certainly present at a meeting, 2 or 3 meetings ago, if you will, we talked with that board, came into a committee meeting and talked about our own Explore Life document and employing, an EDI lens to our content selection. And it's more than that, I know that, but I just wanted to end with that, knowing that we're heading into that discussion. So I really appreciate seeing that reference in here too.
So
Sharon? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, just to speak to two things on that. So, yeah, some of the things that you see in here, we do already, and we are proud of them, and we think we should keep doing them, and that's kind of the DNA that I was referring to as well. But I reference this in the preamble of this document. This process, if nothing else, has also been a good reminder for us as staff that we need to act with intent. Like, we can do these things by accident, but we can also do it with intent to make sure that they're satisfying these priorities, right? So that's one of those pieces. Just on the schools, one of the things that has caused us to think about that again is obviously we're incredibly fortunate to have community schools in this municipality, but the school system also has a new physical activity framework that they've recently released. So we should be thinking, and in that they talk about connections to communities, connection to community outside just the school facility, and connections to municipal governments. So we should also be reciprocating that and think about how can we support you? There's things that we might be able to do, things that we can't or shouldn't do, but we should at least host that conversation with them. So that's what that is speaking to.
Sorry, Sharon, do you mind if I just continue on with the thread around community schools?
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. So in terms of continuing the thread around community schools, I'm not as familiar with programming with ACEs, and CDS and CAMS, maybe Forest Heights, but certainly Neros. And probably, and I will admit, it's not because I'm hands-on, it's because I'm on social media. And I'm seeing some of the things that they're doing, and they are really, but this is a school, I guess it's a school of some of the teachers and not necessarily us as a community school, but they are doing a lot of outdoor stuff, massive amount of outdoor stuff, and massive amount with the trail on the Ross Farm, and not just going on a trail walk either, right? We're talking vegetation, we're talking gardening, we're talking identifying plants and trees, and as an outdoor educational experience, not just fun. But learning is fun, right? But most recently, they're looking at doing an outdoor mud kitchen, right? It is very cool. So they've got the post on Facebook, and it's certainly, I know we all know this, but it's certainly very rewarding to see the comments around, I've got this, I've got that, I'm willing to donate, and that. But I think that maybe, and I know that you do, and through Nadine and the work that we all do, but I think that maybe, again, just becoming more aware of CDS, CAMS, ACES, Forest Heights, and Neros in terms of what you just said there, maybe becoming more involved and looking to them. Yeah, so I just wanted to finish with that, because I do think that our schools, I know we know this, it's not just the school population or the population in the community, but it's about resident attraction, resident retention and resident attraction, right? Our schools and our communities. So, okay.
And there is a tremendous amount that's being done, not only directly through us, but also, as everyone knows, so we do direct program in the schools, but it's those rentals and those those grassroots programs that are coming up that the community wants to see something happen. They come in and rent the space for us, and so all those things that we've been talking about around the pickleball and the birthday parties and all those kind of things that happen just from the community. So having access to that space is pretty critical, and we're so fortunate, and we actually hear that from a lot of our neighbors that don't have that same access, and they're like, how do you guys do this, right? So we answer those questions on a fairly regular basis.
And staff, you're not just renting the facilities, you're actually facilitating. I just want to say that. You're facilitating those discussions. So in an area they want to see, I'll use pickleball at CAMS or CDS or Nadine and the staff make that happen.
Yeah, we could spend an hour talking about pickleball, but we won't do that.
Okay, that's all right.
Big tournament coming up or something. Sharon.
Yeah, thank you. Just say I sit on the rec committee and worked on this project, and very pleased with the outcome. I think it's a great document. The Recreation Committee had a lot of input on it as well. I think it's a good for the next 3 years, and there's measurables in it. I really like it. I think it's about time that we had such a document. I think it's great.
And thank you, Sharon. And just on that note, we also tried to weave into this, like how can we better engage CMRC as well? So there's a couple of nuggets in here where, yes, we invite you to continuously ask us how we're filling the buckets, but also if we do that, for example, one of the actions is a kind of a Rec and Sport Community Summit, which we would hope that CMRC members would also help host us, be in the room to hear the conversations firsthand rather than through the filter of staff, is I think we put it in the meeting, that kind of thing. So yeah, we look to CMRC to engage a little bit more with our work too that way.
And to end on pickleball, we now have pickleball Thursday afternoon at Bonnie Lee Farm.
Oh, good.
That,
Play pickleball.
some of the
That's great.
pickleball group are coming out and working with the participants. It's great, they love it.
Yeah, and they've been coming out to attend one of our sessions at the community schools at CAMS actually. We're able to kind of work with them, facilitate, and actually use some of the skilled pickleballers from the community that are willing to instruct, and so some of them were able to connect and reach out to Bonnie Lee. So there's a really nice partnership that has
Arthur
developed there.
Armstrong came out, and him and his group, and I think they're going to continue it on Thursday afternoon, and going forward, certainly the way things are working with the province on the new remedy with persons with disabilities, I'm sure that the gym will be open up, more for the community and trying to work with the community.
And I think our pickleball equipment went out to Bonnie Lee at least for the first few games. So just to flag, there's all those connections that we try to.
Yeah, so because of the demand, so instead of it just being our equipment at our facilities, we knew that there, because of the demand towards, so we purchased some extra additional equipment, and then that gets loaned out so it can use outside, it can go to Bonnie Lee, it can go wherever it's needed in addition to, just to take full advantage of whatever space that we have available for that activity to happen. So yeah, it's been really great to be able to support them.
Okay, anyone else, any questions, comments?
No, and I think they're looking for a motion to approve this document, and I would make that motion if you can entertain that.
Yeah, I'm happy to entertain it. We have a seconder?
Second one.
Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion carried, thanks much.
You know who invented pickleball?
You send it.
No?
It's a hot, because I was wondering why they call it pickleball, right? It's a hotly debated subject.
You need to go try it.
Yeah, well, it was three fathers from Rainbridge Island, Washington, and they created by Father, as the legend goes.
So just over there now.
You're a legend.
Yeah.
You're the legend.
I'm a legend in my own mind, right?
Okay, 9.2, equity, diversity, inclusion, request for direction, plan, action, who's doing
Action
that?
plan update? Me, do you want me to sit down there?
Yeah, I want to stand there so I see you.
Not gonna please.
You can see me here. That's why you keep us.
I can see you better now that Jennifer's gone.
Now, I don't have a god-awful Toronto Maple Leafs jacket. I have to rely on my charm.
You don't want this approved, do you?
So if I'm relying on my charm, could go either way. Not sure.
This is an old Montreal Canadian. Gone.
Okay, so you have before you a request for direction about our equity, diversity, and inclusion action plan update. It's been a year since council approved the revised version.
Okay.
And the committee committed to reviewing it every year just so we could align it with council's needs or the needs of the community. Okay, so the revised CDI action plan that council approved on March 9th, 2023 is due for a refresh. Municipal staff with assistance from the advisory committee have completed 40% of this living document, and you'll find a copy of it, of a graphic version in your package. So you can see that at the beginning, we have each of our objectives that were outlined in the original word plan that you approved. And then under each goal is what we have left to complete in the top and what we've already completed in the bottom for each action. So about 40% has been completed, and the rest, staff commitments and things, we weren't able to proceed with some of them, but talks are underway or we're in the planning stage So for more details, just you can refer to that. Before going any further with the plan though, and since it's been a year, we want to ensure that this action plan is aligned with what council sees going forward, as well as our residents and our businesses and nonprofits in the community. So a little bit of background. For the last 2 years, council and municipality have come a long way. I know because I've been involved since then. Staff have done training from foundational diversity training, which was a mandatory session for all staff, to Indigenous relations, individual training, management training, human resources training, most of which was free. A lot of good resources. We took part in the inaugural So Shore Pride Parade, so that was fun. A group from work and Tina, as a counselor, came. We need to beef up our decorations, but we were kind of, anyways, embarrassed. But we developed a Pride logo and handed out stickers. Put them on t-shirts, super popular. We offer regular lunch and learn opportunities for staff to come cover a number of opportunities. They usually align with an observance that happens that month. It's usually every other month. So we had, the last one was, I think, African Nova Scotian Heritage Month. Yep. We do things for accessibility and so on. We had several policies come to council that specifically support inclusion. For example, the North American Indigenous Games policy, the EDI terms of reference, flag flying policy. And we've shown many times over our commitment to and position on equity, including commendable support by council of a regional position and committee. So a timeline of your support, I just condensed it. So in 2020, council publicly committed to developing an action plan for diversity and inclusion and revising the flag flying policy to include special purpose flags. Shortly after that, council passed a motion to commit to improve equity, diversity, and reduce discrimination within our own organization and the community of the municipality by joining the Canadian Coalition of Municipalities Against Racism and Discrimination. Also, to endorse the initiatives in a preliminary equity, diversity, and inclusion action plan, and to support the establishment of a committee, an advisory committee. The following year, council adopted its 21-24 strategic priorities framework, which you put a lot of work into, and in that included goal number 4, healthy and vibrant communities, that outlines, quote, ongoing engagement with partners and stakeholders, supports vibrant and sustainable communities throughout our municipality, through long-range planning that creates active and safe communities, and through the provision of accessible and inclusive programs and services, we work to improve quality for life of our residents. One of the priority outcomes under that goal was to develop an accessibility, diversity, and equity lens for municipal plans and services, and support partners in advancing accessible and inclusive communities. Following that, you gave second and final notice to adopt policy P108 for the advisory committee, which is terms of reference, and I also included that in the request for decision. A motion from the nominating committee then appointed 6 community members through an application and selection process, and most of them are still on our committee. And that was ratified in October 2021. The committee worked hard to kind of settle in and get some work started, and to identify what their role was and what was available to them for tools and so on through the municipality, and what our expectations were. And we revised the action plan to what you see today, which includes all of the actions, just kind of reorganized, and kind of put some actions to staff and a little fuller discussion at the committee level. Then after that, last year, council made a motion to proceed with the regional committee pilot for 2 years. And I don't know if we want to update on.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to do that?
Sure. Well, the council did receive an email with the exciting news that we have a new regional anti-racism and diversity coordinator, Craig Upshaw. He comes to us with years and years of experience.
We got that yesterday.
Yes, in inclusion work. He starts April 3rd.
Yes.
And we'll get the ball rolling in terms of developing that regional committee, and we'll introduce him to council when he starts in April.
And we expect him to play a big role in our own local EDI committee too. There's going to be lots of overlap and building, leveraging on his connections. So finally, our existing EDI committee, we appointed 3 members. 2 were returning, I think, and 1 new one. Charlie McGinnis, some of you know from Forest Heights, he sits on their student council.
He's on our committee. You
Yeah.
appointed him.
Yeah, he's a great asset for that committee, as they all are, any community member.
Now, will Charlie still be on? He's going to university next year. Will he still be on the committee?
He'll have to decide. It depends on the time limit or the time constraints. We're happy to Zoom members in when they're unable to come in person. So we'll leave that up to him. I think his term is 2 years. So if he wants to step down, we'll have to advertise for someone new. Yeah. I think he enjoys being on the committee. He always has stuff to offer.
Very talented guy.
Yeah, he is. So relating to today, that was a little background. I think we all know that EDI work can be difficult. It's personal. It deals with people's vulnerabilities, exclusion, all the hard things that we don't really want to talk about and we don't want to face ourselves. Because some levels of government, it's kind of hard. I think it's better for us in terms of other levels of government, but in some people's mind, government's government. So from the past, it's hard we have to build a trust up with our residents, and which makes the work even more difficult sometimes. So part of the EDI work is to listen and learn about the struggles of our residents, because we don't all experience the same. We don't all have the same experiences. We don't experience the same discrimination. Some of us experience very little, and some of us experience more, depending. So we need to have those conversations with and we do have them with our community members on our committee. And we're hoping, as you'll see later, to go out and have those conversations with our residents and organizations. We need to find out if there's a role for us in terms of adjusting our service delivery. I think there is, or policy implementation so that these barriers can be eliminated. Or if we can collaborate with other community partners. There's some businesses that need assistance. There's some nonprofits like Community Wheels that, and I know we're already on their board, but to introduce maybe some of this work too. So this and more is already identified in our current action plan, but to stay current and in step with changing needs and requirements, the advisory committee, that's why we review this action plan, or hope to, annually. So since this is the first review, we're asking for council's direction and coming here first. And we need your ultimate decision to guide us on prioritization of the actions that are left to be done.
What are the changes from last one?
There are no changes.
Okay.
It's the exact same one, but before, we need to know if you want to make any changes first, and then we can, yeah. So some of the things, one obvious example is the economic development work. We didn't have a full staff, so some of the interaction and engagement with businesses in here, none of that is done yet. But now that we have a community economic development officer plus a senior officer, we can start on that. And it's not a ton of work, it's just making those connections and seeing if we can help. It could be an overwhelming task to ask each individual business to do the research and make sure they have their policies and what do they do for employment, when we very well likely have the resources from provincial connections that we can put them together. So we're just asking for you to guide us on the prioritization. We put a list of some of the things that we thought might be a priority. Building out some of the actions. Some of them are kind of vague, and it was on purpose because you never know what funding might come out of the provincial federal government versus, and if we could apply for it, we could build it around our actions. Engagement strategy, which we have a draft engagement strategy included in the package that has some ideas from the committee, some of the community members on where we might start. And then we just kind of filled in some of the other things, like a fancy graphic plan that we might take out with us. We also ordered some booklets from the province on some resources that they have. We have our stickers, we have a brochure that we developed. And the committee actually looked at all of that material and thought that it was ready to bring here for you to look at. Also, relationship building. So advancing some of these actions approved by council requires some partnership with outside organizations. Like, are there any specific topics of interest or groups that council would like us to include that aren't included in the strategy? And also finally, just an update on training. It's already included in the action plan, and we've already done a lot of it, but there is some training that we're thinking for the following year that you might see in the budget. Not a lot, like I say, quite a bit that's free already, like through iSands and things like that.
Any questions, people? I guess we got a lot to do.
I know.
I mean, the big one is, do we want to adopt it or not?
Or do you want us to actually ask, and you'll get 2 motions next week at council. If you want to proceed, if there's any changes, if you want to proceed, and basically if you want to proceed with the community engagement plan, that's outlined.
Yeah, Tina and then Andre.
Okay, thank you. So certainly, again, being a member, working alongside staff, participating alongside staff, and the phenomenal community members that have turned out month after month after month in terms of meetings and work and rolling up sleeves. And I will look across the table to certainly Abdallah and Andre. Abdallah was with the committee since inception, right up until just a few months ago, really, and then Andre's wonderfully joined the committee in the last couple of meetings. And so I was excited to see this package, probably I think Andre's first meeting maybe, and it was wonderful. We all like visuals. I know that the word hadn't gone right, but it's still it's the same. And it's, again, as any document, or not any, but a business plan, strategic plan, action plan, it's a living document. So, and that's what we refer to. But I appreciate the staff taking the time to look at the recommendation of the prioritization of what you've got there, and I read it over, and I'm fine with all that, so I'm hoping all the others have read it over as well. I get the fact that we might need some more meat to some within here, but what strategic plan or strategic priorities, even of our own, if you will, as a municipality, when we look at our own open space plan, active living plan, any of them could be, and the one that we just did right now, the strategic outlook, like requires maybe some more, but that's what the committee is in place for. And
they're general in nature, and they get more meat as you get on
the communities and so on. Again, I know I'm just repeating what Jennifer said, I'm sorry, but I just wanted to indicate my support. And the fact that this has been a process, and I'm proud to say that it was a process with really great volunteer commitment of our community members, and even, say the newer ones that Charlie McGinnis, new to the board within the last 6 months, hands-on, jumping right in. I'm excited, and I think we're all ready to go out to the community. We've talked about it for a long time now, Del, I think when you were on the committee, the farmers markets and the opportunities with Chester Race Week or the New Ross Fair and what was going on, because, we talked about this is who we want to engage with is our own community. So is it the race week or is it the farm market? We went back and forth on that, right? So where are we seeing our residents? I don't think there's anything else. I think that was it.
If council approves us proceeding with the community engagement plan, we'll do that and then bring back a more informed action plan for approval and update.
Who was it wanted to speak? Oh, Andre, yes, sorry.
Okay, all right. Well, I have a few questions. How are we gonna, because it's not clear to me, the regional committee, what is the work that's gonna be undertaken by the regional committee versus what we're doing here? Like, I'm not sure, I heard like overlap, but I mean, like, what specifically are we gonna ask the regional committee to do that this group is not gonna be doing and vice versa? That's, in my mind, very cloudy and very confusing. And I would like to have, before we can really proceed with any plan, I feel like we should know what we're asking the regional committee to do, because, why would you do twice? It just seems like that's going to be a problem.
They should be looking at this as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I mean, so I need some answers on that. I really feel that's important.
Who's going to answer?
Well, somebody's going to answer it. I don't have to answer.
So, okay, go ahead. I probably can't answer it, but I'm going to pipe up. And what I'm going to say is I'm going to go back to when we discussed this a year or so ago. We talked about the regional position. And my recollection is, and I think this is where Abdella was kind of the tipping point. And rightly so, we have the right to deal with it. So we talked about the good work of this committee and the momentum of this committee and what was accomplished and what was happening and the belief in the project and the want to continue doing it. And then we talked about, at this council, the value in a regional partnership, and not to negate that, but to add to it and to add that value, and the fact that our staff here, again, I might be wrong, but our staff are so oversubscribed, they're so busy, and that's true, I'm not just saying that. But this would add value. And Abdella was clear in that the work that this committee, correct me please if I'm wrong, the work of this committee was valuable, we've made progress, and it shouldn't stop, it should continue with the work of those volunteers, and the regional coordinator can add value.
Help them achieve their goals.
Exactly, so Andre, I'm more focused on this, but yet I'm supportive and buying into the regional position to add value. Again, I might be wrong, so staff probably should correct me. But that's how I see it.
So the province has some legislation that will require us to do EDI action plans, and we've agreed to do that and participate at a regional level, get a broader representation on that committee and do some work at a regional level. Much like the accessibility committee, we envision that the regional level plan will be our formal, the formal plan that's adopted, submitted to the province. It has broad regional goals, and then there's local work that will have to be done. So digging in, the regional committee is not going to dig into our personnel policy if we get them to review that. Like, they wouldn't do that kind of local level work. That's what this committee, our local advisory committee would do. But the regional committee will develop a regional plan for Lunenburg County that will have specific actions that municipalities should be undertaking. And so, much like the regional work that's being done on accessibility, Ellen leads the regional work, but she's also helping out with our local work as well and building capacity with our staff, because she definitely has connections and understanding of the accessibility stuff that enriches our local and supports our local staff. And so we envision that this would be similar. So not that the regional committee would be necessarily directing digging into our own policies and stuff like that. That would be our local level. But it would say in Lunenburg County, we're going to aim to have policies that, and whichever, right? Like whatever our policies are, they would support that higher level, broader local work that would work towards meeting the goals of the provincial level. That's the idea of it right now.
Well, I'm familiar with the requirement to have an EDI action plan, and of course, we want to efficiently deliver service in an equitable, diverse, and inclusive manner. We're sort of being asked to approve this plan or whatever, support this plan, but it's like, I feel like we're missing a key ingredient, and that is the input from the regional committee, which I know is just about to take off, but it's just that whole interaction is very vague to me, and I'm not sure how well, if we go with this, like how well it's actually going to work with the regional committee.
So our plan's already adopted.
All right,
Yeah.
fine. But what are we asking for today?
Permission to do the engagement piece so we can have the community's input and input of businesses so we can inform a revision of this plan. We've done 40% of it already. We want to replace it with new things.
And are you looking for prioritization of the existing, of those, the
If
list of
they want to
items
give it,
there? If there's
if
any
council
items
wants to give
that
it,
you want to give.
You want to go out and take this to the community and find out what they think.
yeah, and in the
And then at the end
EDI,
of the day, I think it needs to also, that information has to be presented to the regional committee.
and talking with, and consulting with the regional person is actually listed in here ahead of anything else, yeah.
Yeah. One, just joining this committee, which is very interesting and new experience for me outside of my normal scope of knowledge, to say the least. It's interesting. But one thing that sort of bothers me, I feel like the plan as we have it lacks a bit of specifics. And we don't have as many check-ins maybe with council as what I think maybe we should have. Like, for example, I like this example. Review naming of infrastructure, roads, facilities and roads is one of the items on it. It's just a bullet. But that may mean different things to different people.
That it does.
In my mind, when I saw that originally, I thought, okay, well, maybe we need a policy to, if we're going to name a new road, there might be some criteria, like maybe we don't want to name it after individuals, or we don't, there's maybe certain things that we don't want to have in our road naming policy, or whatever. But to others, it might be say, okay, we want to have indigenous names for all of our parks, or whatever. And there's a lot of ways you could kind of go with that, and this plan, with this or strategy doesn't really lend a lot of specifics. So what I think can really, especially in a committee like this, and I've observed it in other jurisdictions, sometimes the committee, because if it doesn't have really a really strong link to council, they can kind of start to wander into where they think council wants them to go, and then if it then comes to council and there's like a disconnect there, then they can become very disillusioned with because they've put a lot of effort and time and emotion into it, and then it's like, oh wait a minute, what are you doing that for? And so I would suggest, if we're going to proceed as we go along, we actually have more frequent communication back from this committee so that we can make sure that we're like all of our other committees, like for example, like planning advisory or building code or whatever, we give them very specific tasks saying, can you look at this bylaw, or can you look at this site, or whatever, and it's really obvious what they have to do. So that's really, but this is a little foggier, and I think for that reason it's important to have a more frequent check-in period so that we don't end up someplace that we didn't know we were going and then everybody's upset or not upset, but just disconnected. And that's one concern I have about this, and especially if we're going to have sort of like two pieces where there's the regional, there's the local, and then like what we think we want, and like there's three groups possibly doing stuff, and that connection it becomes really important. That's all I have to say. This is based on only 2 meetings I've participated in.
Yeah. Abdallah, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just want to say, I'll use Tina's words, I love this committee because we started it from scratch. And it was very difficult for me not to take the appointment, just because of the simple fact, as Jennifer said, with the public engagement. We can go out to local businesses and do our work here. To me, that was the important thing. I know to look at it regionally, but I like the hands-on of our committee here to do the work locally in our municipality. And in no way did I not want to be on the committee, but I just felt strongly about that. So that's really all I had to say in that.
Tina?
Thank you. I want to actually just respond to Andre's input around communication back through council and so on. I'm going to respond to that in a minute. But Abdullah's comments now just reminded me that my thinking around the regional position and the regional committee is provincially mandated. I felt that we were head and shoulders ahead, if you will, of any other municipal unit in the county. That's my opinion, could be wrong. But the fact that they weren't willing or did not actually look to their own communities to form a committee. I think Tara had mentioned that they couldn't find committee members at one point. That was an answer back. And that's their answer. I find that difficult to believe, only because when we did the first, I was on the nominating committee when we did the first call for interest, and we had a difficult time at that meeting. There was so much interest. I've never seen the likes of people wanting to step up to a committee as this committee. It was amazing. It was wonderfully rewarding and heartwarming to see all these applications. So that's us. So I do believe in, and I'm not going to let go of our local stuff at all. One bit. We can do what we want to do, and we will do regionally. This stuff is where it's at. My opinion, well, I'm only one person, my opinion. Now, getting back to Andre. So I guess the fact that the feedback and the reports and the regular checking with council wasn't happening, that we have a process, and we have councillors appointed to those committees, and that's their job.
Just a report.
So I wasn't doing my job.
Guess not.
Yes, no. So
I wasn't doing it with Remo.
So I would then further suggest that we have a brand new counselor on the committee. So Andre will put me to shame. He will be the individual counselor that brings back the report to council on a regular basis. And I really apologize for not doing my job. And I look forward to the regular committee reports with a true and accurate snapshot of what's coming out of this committee meetings back to this council.
And if we need the chair of the committee to come in on occasion, there's no problem with that. We'll just ask him to do so.
Right on.
Yeah.
Here.
Going forward.
Okay, do we want to approve letting them do community engagement or not?
Absolutely.
Well, then somebody make the motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you.
Did we also want to, we probably should get direction on prioritization. So staff have recommended the prioritization of the items on
So
page 2.
I didn't know we were supposed to approve that, are we?
Yeah, it's
Somebody make a
part of the
motion.
same motion. Second motion.
Make it another one just to make it simple.
Approve the prioritization.
Seconder? Anybody?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Sorry. Verbal update, grant opportunity regarding municipal flood line mapping.
Verbal. We're getting verbal now.
Just before you start, how'd your meeting go last night?
Went really well. Yep, we had good attendance. I think 22 in the afternoon and 10 or 15 again for the evening session.
That was
The wharf. Yeah, this was the Dal students doing the reimagined Hancock Ferry Wharf kind of project, and yeah, no, it went really well. needed a little bit of clarification just on the scope of the project, and that all those future decisions will be coming back to this table. We don't know how that'll all play out. You know, condition of the wharf, all of that's going to be looked at, obviously, before council would agree to anything. But once we got beyond that, there was, really good discussion. I think in general, the comments, and the students will be coming back to present all their details, but just high-level comments. There was obviously a lot of interest to keep it in the either public ownership or available to the public, and not wanting to lose it as an access point. There was a lot of discussion, interestingly, I found, around the users more so. So the ideas weren't about let's build a huge building, or it was more about how the wharf is used, which I thought was really insightful and a good way to have that discussion. So discussion about having, making sure that the commercial fishermen that are still using it would have access to what they need, but then potentially, looking at expanded floating wharves for more recreational boating opportunities. A lot of people said they would like a chance to come in and moor, for a couple of hours and walk around the village. And currently, although there's a few spots, it's limited and can be tied up. I think probably the main comments we heard about what physically should be there that isn't was potentially public washrooms. That was something we heard. And then interestingly enough, kind of in concert with what council's been talking about already, a lot of discussions about making Water Street a one-way street, and a boardwalk or pedestrian path or something along there. Overall it went really well, and that final report will be coming back from the students here before long. So there is also, we did, Jen was able to attend the first session, so there is, that was recorded. The presentation portion of that is up on the municipal YouTube channel if anybody was interested and wanted to take a look.
Live tab.
Yeah, oh yes, thanks, yeah, we're going to live tab. But,
Okay, floodline mapping.
yeah, so what I'm here to talk to you about today is basically to give you an update on, we brought a request for direction to council, it was just before Christmas. Around the municipal floodline mapping program. So since that time, we have gotten more details, and there's been a little bit of change in scope, and so we just wanted to bring that to council to update it. Nothing has been signed yet, and so there is, of course, council does have the opportunity to change their direction, but we just wanted to bring you up to date on what's happened, and we've gotten some more clarity on things too. So essentially, and this is, I would say, not directly related to the announcement on the Coastal Protection Act. It just is coincidental that we're talking about this this week. So just as a quick reminder, what this was, we were approached by Department of Municipal Affairs for a funding opportunity. At the time, initially, the amount was for $100,000, and the purpose of the funding was basically to do public engagement in advance of flood mapping that we know is coming. So the province has basically said that by 2027, 2028, they will have flood mapping done for the entire province, and that will be rolled out to the public and to municipalities. And so this is an opportunity to kind of get out ahead of that, do some engagement, hopefully pull on local knowledge, and get hopefully build buy-in and capacity, so that when those flood maps come out, and ultimately if there are regulations that come along with that, that people will be aware of what's coming, felt that they've been involved, informed, and had some input into the process. So we do have that clarification that the floodplain mapping is coming. So what the grant money will allow us to do would be to hire consultants to go out and do some of that public engagement work. The other piece that was initially proposed was we would have a consultant, it could be the same one or it could be two separate consultants, review the CDCL study data that was done for the entire county a number of years ago. And so the intent here would be to use that data as a starting point, and then identify, as we all know, there were issues with the data quality in certain regions, and that was why we ultimately sort of stepped back from that work. So this would be hopefully to not just have that completely go to waste. We would be able to review that and or the consultant would review that and identify
where the weaknesses
the gaps, basically. Yeah, that's right.
I think just for clarity, I don't know that it was data quality issues. It was the granularity of the data collection.
Yes.
That's what the issue was.
Yeah, that's right. The level of uncertainty.
The level at which we collected the data wasn't sufficient enough in the end to be able to go deep into
The modeling.
the regulation and the modeling that we would need to do to meet the regulatory requirements from the province.
That's right. Yeah, the data itself, the data that was collected is good. It's just
And we can still use it, and this is,
That's
but
right.
there was some money in this to be able to
review
enhance that.
Yeah, and enhance it, exactly. So since that time, we have essentially been offered some more money from the province. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The first part is that initially when they were reaching out to us and to other municipalities to offer this programming, they were trying to make sure they had enough to go around. Based on who's responded, that's changed the numbers a little bit. So we did. So initially, essentially, the amount was increased to potentially 250,000. And now we have received a new update that it is up to 500,000. But there is a change in the scope with that. So it's essentially just moving the next piece. So basically we're going to have the consultant do public engagement, have the consultant review the existing data and identify gaps. And then this new funding would basically be to go out and actually collect data to fill in those gaps. So that might be putting in rainfall gauges in certain parts of the municipality or sensors in rivers to get flow data and gauges, that kind of thing. So that's where that extra amount of money comes, is it's going to be field work basically for the consultants.
And actual real data.
Right, to actually collect data.
More granularity to the data that was missing.
That's right. And along with the increased money comes an increased extension of the timeline to allow for that data collection, because some of those things may need to be in place for a number of months in order to gather enough data to be useful. So the update is a slight expansion in the change of scope, more funding opportunity, and then the expansion of the timeline.
That Dell plays guitar.
No, that's Andre. It's not me.
With this new agreement, we would have until September of 2025 to do the public engagement and all these data collection pieces, some of which could run concurrently. The public engagement could be going on while the gauges were in the rivers, for example, that kind of thing. And then I guess in terms of ultimately where this ends up, like we said, once the mapping is available by the province, there is currently a statement of provincial interest around flood risk areas, and it basically says that once information is available about flood risk areas, then municipalities as the land use authority are required to plan and regulate for those. There are some set out in the statement as to the kinds of things we're talking about. It's either flood proofing in areas that are prone to flooding on a frequent basis, or in some cases certain uses that might have trouble with evacuations wouldn't be permitted in those areas at all. Right now, that is what the statement says, and there is not anything about the coast. We don't know where that's going, but what we do know, and what we did get clarification on, because we think it's an important piece to mention here, is that the mapping, when it comes out in 2027, 2028, will include coastal flooding risk. As of now, there's no new statement or no update to the statement, but I would suspect that either that existing statement will be updated or a new one will come out to talk about coastal flooding, and then we will likely, as was discussed earlier, be coming, to have those discussions about what kind of regulations we want to have at the coastline.
Yeah, the trick is that the Coastal Protection Act dealt also with erosion.
Yes.
So that's another whole part of it, like, it's not flooding today. It's supposed to forecast what flooding will look like in 50 or 100 years, and that's the problem. Is the predictive model is going to be absent.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. Yeah.
I mean, this is still useful to us.
Yeah. So I think, and I think when we, assuming that we continue on this path, when we get our consultant hired, there'd be an opportunity to discuss with them whether, when we go out to do public engagement, do we want to talk about the coast or not? People are going to ask about it, obviously. There's a lot of interest, so we can discuss with them and strategize with them how we have those discussions versus maybe the inland flooding we talk about in a different way. But anyway, just wanted to bring those updates to council because It hasn't drastically changed, but there have been changes and some clarifications that we've received, so we just wanted to make sure that.
And the last time council saw it, it was $100,000
Yeah.
funding with
Yeah.
no, so there's no, to be
You know,
clear, there's
the-
no financial contribution from the municipality
right.
coming
The
up.
problems is shameful, if I have to say.
So it was 100,000, now it's 500,000. We didn't want to
Yeah.
sign that agreement for 500,000
Right.
without coming to council and letting you know that that
We-
is
we
what
didn't
the
even ask
scope is.
No, and that's great, but that's shameful, you know, because it doesn't matter, if it's got to do with water, they'll be throwing money at us like it's no tomorrow. And I know it's not coincidental, I mean, I shouldn't say it's not coincidental, that they're throwing money at floodplains and just, it behooves me that they're throwing money like that. It's stupid.
Anyway,
That's just a statement on my behalf. Take the money, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I don't think we need
I
a
don't think
motion
we need a
unless
motion. We
there's a
have a
change.
motion. I just
Yep.
wanted clarity that council was
yeah,
comfortable with that change, and we'll go ahead and sign that.
Yeah, and we'll obviously update you as we have.
somebody give me a couple extra.
No, yeah, the inland flooding, yeah, we need to do it, and this is the only way.
Yeah,
And the alternative, if we didn't take this funding, is that the mapping would come anyway, we'd still have to regulate it, and then we wouldn't have had the benefit of $100,000 for public engagement and the data collection.
Yeah, we need
So,
the data.
yeah.
no, yeah, no.
Okay.
That's good to have.
All right.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Go on.
Well, people, that's the end of the agenda. So I have only one question. Do you want to take a short break or do you